Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's report. It's for the 10th of March. Well, we had the excitement of, semi-disaster. I mean, obviously, you can see that Trump has pivoted and backed off the initial goals. They're not going to look for regime change or anything like that because they realize that, their 4-day bombing campaign, I think he said it all. They thought that they would have conceded a couple of days ago. They didn't. I don't know where they would have got that idea from. The Iranians are not going anywhere anytime soon, and they're not willing to bomb out the infrastructure of oil. And you saw what happened with oil prices, and when futures opened, whew, it was ugly for them, and no surprise. But as soon as that happens, you get in there and say, "Oh, we're going to release strategic reserves and blah 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 blah." And of course, the market liked to hear that and responded accordingly. Has it changed anything completely? Not so much. You can see that dip, not uncalled for, from NASDAQ, satisfying exactly what we expected, a return to the 0%. Whether you want to call it from the news, whatever, it was still expected for us to reach the 0%. And that's in fact what actually happened. So we still had orange caught between sign. We did end up with the dip there that really was unable to manifest anything. And that's just a result of the fact you don't have any steel reset. So your short-term buyers pretty much not really available to see. And this kind of reflects it here that spike in oil, even if it was temporary, doesn't matter. You're still going to end up with a situation where we're in the 90s here and we were in the 60s. So that's a 50% increase in but that means that it's the inflation is what it's going to lead to, and that's something that's unavoidable, and it's going to transmit itself throughout everything, and it was counterproductive to everything that Trump has worked for. So it's like shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. Euro took a nosedive on that because Europe would have been destroyed if oil prices had stayed at those levels. So everyone was scrambling to do what they could, and which is why you have this huge back off of, what the expectation is of what you might get from the situation. Have they been crippled militarily? Yeah, sure. So you can claim your win from that standpoint, but beyond that, nothing else has pretty much changed. Euro is still way overvalued for what you're getting there, and modest from the gold standpoint. It's still going to continue to rise, and given where inflation is now headed, Fed's in a tight one here because you're not going to meet your expectations, but you're also looking at a huge employment dip. That within all the investment stuff, things could be good, but not with oil what they are. So that's just the plain truth of it. It's never changed. The narrative doesn't matter. It's always been about energy costs. Here we go from our 50K. So we had the short all the way back at 68.40 something here. Didn't end, and then we went all the way to the 65. So that was pretty darn clean. The shift was the magenta moving back over. Once you get back over the 23 at the 66.49 range, actually gave it a little bit later because of MBI weight in that particular, but working with adjusting the code on that one so that it would actually capture it at the corrective change there. Fine, you have your DOC spread with the crossover and then the dip of orange. Those are all bullish configurations as long as you get above the 23%, and at that particular point it should convert. So that's where I'm working with that program set up there. From a 5-minute standpoint, you can see where futures drove down, ended up with a pretty strong turnaround buyback. Got to protect that plunge setup. And you had some nice moves in between. Range-wise, you can't beat it. Here we're in the positive from EU session, and can increase the size of that scale so it's a little bit easier to see. There you go. That's a quick report on it. I would expect more of the same, and pretty clean from an indicator read. So from that standpoint, there's no real issue. We'll just keep playing with what it is. So that's the long and the short of it for now. Have a good one. Trade well. Pre-market is started.